Hey folks, welcome to the Wealth Transfer with TC. Today I'm going to be giving you guys a quick update on Zion Oil and Gas, and also I want to give you guys my thoughts on the shareholder meeting. Now before I get into this, folks, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing information, giving you my thoughts and my opinions on that information. Now folks, I did not want to do a video right after the shareholder meeting because I didn't want to add to the panic that was already going on. It also gave me time to really watch the shareholder meeting over again just to get my thoughts and, looking at people's reactions and body movements and body language and all that. So I could try to get a better understanding of what is actually going on, right? And then actually do a little bit of research, especially dealing with the testing and all that stuff. So just really quick, today we see that Zion Oil is currently at 20 cents. Ever since its major drop, that's where it's been hovering at, consolidating. All right, and the short interest, looking at the short interest, which on the day of the shareholder meeting actually dropped dramatically from the previous few days before then, right? Even though that Zion Oil traded over 32 million stocks that day, the short volume ratio was only less than 10%. The next couple days after, it was still pretty low, even though the volume itself was low, it still was pretty low. And because they don't know if people are going to just pile back in, right? If there were people that were swing trading, or if there were people that were just selling off to take a profit and then they're going to invest everything back in, maybe they're just being a lot more cautious. So when I hear like these people talk about in groups or on social media, and they all get together and they say, we're going to buy a whole bunch of stocks on Monday morning, you're kind of like, okay, what kind of trading strategy is that? That doesn't do anything but push up the price and give the opportunity for shorts to take advantage of that. Because if everybody piles in on Monday morning, which is the worst thing that you can do, you don't have anything left for the rest of the day to keep the stock up. And I said that, we don't want to see big jumps in Zion Oil. We want to see it go a penny at a time, right? And what happened? Right? It jumped immediately, and everybody's all happy and everybody's getting all excited, not realizing that the trading strategy was going to hurt them. And then there you have it. And the people who did short Zion Oil and Gas did make a ton of load of money that day for sure. And we still don't have any update on fails to delivers. Actually, here in the next couple of days, we should actually get the update on the fails to deliver and short interest. Okay, so currently I have the Zion Oil and Gas meeting shareholder up here if you guys want to check it out. I'll leave this link down below in the description if you guys want to watch it. It's probably best to watch it. I would probably say when they actually do their Q&A and when they're talking, because during the meeting they're talking about MJ01 a lot, and that's what I don't really want to hear. I just wanted to hear what was going on with MJ02 and get right to it and not try to distract or drown out a lot of the things that are involved with MJ01. Okay, and what happened was, at least in the beginning, people were wondering what happened with crash in price. Now, come that Monday we saw Zion Oil go up to 42 cents. That's because a lot of people were piling in on Monday morning. They drove the price up only for it to come crashing down. And that's why I say the trading strategy was completely off. And you got people that they're not even people who even read charts or they're swing traders or anything. They're just getting together and buying a whole bunch of stocks. And now and they all went in, were buying in at 40 and 41 cents. And, they've lost half the value of what they had. So from there, after it closed out, the next day, we crashed all the way down to 19 cents. Now, looking at what he said, okay, I'm not going to replay it because I don't know if they're going to have an issue with me replaying anything from the meeting at all whatsoever. But it was around 4 minutes and 11 seconds into the meeting when John Brown said what he said. And I'm actually kind of surprised that they did not check with him to see what he was going to say. And because Zion Oil should know that every single word was going to be analyzed. And John should know it by now too as well. And people were going to take it the wrong way if he didn't mean it that way. And that's exactly what took place. Okay, so I'm going to briefly go over what he said. All right, now he has said he had been praying about a month ago, and God had given him Ecclesiastes 3:1, And this is what he said that God told him. That God said, everything, there's a season and a time to every purpose under the sun. He says it's not your time yet. That's all I've got to say, other than welcome to Zion Oil and Gas. And I know for a fact, well, God had given me in a hotel room and in Tel Aviv in 1983. It's coming to pass very shortly, not today or tomorrow. So in a short period of time, we'll have it. So please be patient. So those are the words that he said. And when you really go over those words, to me, it doesn't sound very positive as far as what's going on with this well. And I don't see why they would try to cover it up. I don't see why we have to try to read something else in this. Like he's trying to hide the fact that they have oil or gas. And that doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, I also wondered why he wasn't more careful in his wording. You know, the moment he said it's not your time yet, the amount of sales just went crazy. Okay, and then he said not today, not tomorrow, so in a short period of time we'll have it. Well, we don't know what a short period of time is, because especially for those of you who've been invested in Zino for 5, 10, 15 years, you've probably heard that a lot. So those are the words that were said, and that caused some great controversy. He could say that they could have it, it's just not right at that moment, but it just doesn't sound right that you would say something like that in a meeting while you're having testing going on. Then the stock of the company tanks. You guys can interpret that the way you want to interpret it, but that's why I encourage you to go back and watch the video. And I said this was said around the 4-minute mark. All right, now the thing is, when I look at what actually took place, because there's a lot of debate on whether or not it was people who were swing trading, whether or not if it was the shorts or people just taking the information and they think it was negative, so they started selling off. Now, we all know that the meeting started around 10 Eastern time, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And you could already see that people, about 10 minutes before the meeting started, you know, there was a little bit of selling off there. But the meeting, I don't think it started right away. I think there might have been some seconds, maybe anywhere from 20 to 45 seconds where the meeting started. And so when I look at the timing, right, and it was 4 minutes, and remember, it was 4 minutes into the meeting when John Brown said what he said. So you see the sell-off already had started, right? You had some selling off that morning, but it wasn't very much. And then as soon as the meeting started, right, 2 minutes into it, then all of a sudden, boom, it just starts taking off. And then you have a pretty big, decent order, 175,000 shares, 3 minutes and 55 seconds into the meeting. Okay, so he had this major sell-off approximately right before John Brown said what he said. Right? Then after that, then the game was on. Everybody was trying to sell off. You have all these different orders, which is weird, You have all these 5,000, 5,000. You have these people trying to manipulate the price down. Okay, so that is, to me, when I see that, right? 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 5,000. You understand what I'm saying? Those are not just people just selling off just because. All right, and the selling continued off through the rest of the day. Right, people took that, and then of course that triggered probably a lot of buy limit orders too as well. But it wasn't enough to keep the price up. More into the meeting, more and more people were just selling off. Okay, in about an hour, I would just say about an hour and 12 minutes into the meeting, 13 minutes is when the Q&A started. And you can see the price had already tanked by then. So approximately around 11 o'clock, right before the Q&A, it was just massive selling off again. Right? And when they got into the Q&A, the sell-off continued to occur. And just looking, like I said, folks, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a stock expert or anything like that. I'm just looking at the times of these sales and orders that were going through. People were trying to take advantage. and then you just see like this continually onslaught of sales. By this point, I think there were probably a lot of people that were panicking, and that's what they wanted to do. The shorts, like I said, they can buy the stock and they can short the stock. Right? There's nothing that prevents them from doing that. So a lot of people were taking advantage of the pricing, around that point, but it never recovered, and it's barely recovered since then. It actually got down to 17 cents on that particular day. And so all throughout the Q&A, and I'll go over the Q&A a little bit just to give you some of my thoughts and my opinions on that. And just looking at the amount of shares, I mean, there's some pretty heavy hitters that were selling off a lot of shares. We actually had somebody buy 1 million shares at 10:44, which was approximately almost 45 minutes into the meeting. Right, but you don't know if it's that same person selling off when it went back up to 21.5 cents. There's no way to know. Then you can look at the sales of all the ones that are over 100,000. Pretty interesting. So I think it was a combination of the shorts attacking, the shorts selling off their own shares. All right, it just seemed like there was just too much selling off going on during different times, and I don't have time to get all deep and in depth in it. At this point, I'm just trying to figure out, where are we going to go from here? Okay, folks, so I'm going to go ahead and go over some of my thoughts and my opinions on the shareholder meeting. The first thing is what I noticed, right? You can see here, this boardroom here, and as you listen to it, and you go through, and as they're talking, throughout the whole entire meeting, right? There's no enthusiasm. Nobody's smiling. Some people aren't even really kind of paying attention. And some people are just like emotionless during the whole entire meeting. And so if I'm trying to get information, whether or not, they have a viable well, to me, this is a negative. But they have all their testing equipment and personnel already there that they paid for. And they had to send them off to somewhere in Texas. But they have testing right then and there. Okay, so that tells me something, right? There's no enthusiasm, nobody's smiling or anything like that. So I have a big problem with that. And then the other thing that I have a problem with is that they kept talking about how transparent they are with the Israel Energy Ministry or whatever, but yet they have not been transparent with us. Again, and that was one of the biggest complaints that we had with the last oil well, that we didn't have that much transparency and updating and everything else. And so we're kind of going through the same process all over again. So that did bother me that they talked about how much transparency they had with them, but not with their shareholders. And when you go back and you go look at the updates compared to what they were saying in this meeting, we did not get the updates that we should have. And I guess they didn't want the share price to be affected. But if you look at the share price now, I mean, it's really been affected all year round anyway. But why not just be open and honest with their shareholders? Who cares if the share goes down below 10 cents? People were going to buy it anyway. And so the other question is when the CEO was asked about their optimism, and it just seemed like they were trying to deflect and not comment on their optimism, and so that bothered me a lot too as well. It doesn't seem like anybody was very optimistic at all whatsoever in the meeting. The CEO, the people around him, the people at the tables, all that stuff. He also said that they're at capacity where they're at right now as far as where they're drilling at. I know they've drilled there before. And so, that also begs the question of whether or not, the future of Zion Oil and everything that they're going to have to go through just to get all this other stuff, to get this well going. And we're talking years, folks, the way that I look at it. So, and there's some other questions relating to the future. If they were to have a viable oil well, how long would it take for production and all this stuff? And they were asked about their licensing and getting all that in the other area. And all I heard was just years and years and years. I think the other thing too is that they were too focused on delays and the virus and MJ01 throughout the whole meeting. And this is one of the things that I saw with people's body language. Pretty much most people stood still where there wasn't very much movement, but every time they talked about delays, all they could do was bob their head up and down yes. Or anything related to MJ01, they could bob their head up and down yes. But when it came to the questions of a viable well or MJ02, it was just like, unless it had to do with delays, you didn't see any movements, body movements, that really showed anything positive at all whatsoever. And so the other thing that I want to bring up is the third-party testing. And I did talk to somebody who does work in the oil industry, and I also went on doing the research. Now, if you've been following this channel, watching this channel, I did video after video about the length of time it takes to test an oil well and whether or not if it's viable. Okay, and they started doing this in May. They should already know. Okay, if they had to send their results off to Texas or whatever, they just send it over there by the computer, right? All their people for the testing were already on site. And the things that I read online about oil testing, I mean, folks, we should have those results already. They also said that those results would not be released until, the next quarter. So the next quarter is coming up, so obviously they don't plan on releasing it this quarter. All right, so there's still going to be a whole lot of time before they actually give us the real information. And if that information does get out that they don't have a viable oil well, you're going to see this skyrocket. But it may go up gradually as time goes on. So like I said, I just wasn't really happy overall with the meeting. And this is my opinions and these are my thoughts. I mean, body language does tell a lot, folks. So if you do watch this, watch the first, maybe 8-9 minutes of it, and then come back and start watching it around the 1 hour mark and finish watching it and look at their body language. Look at every single person in these rooms and look at all their body language throughout the whole entire thing. And then when the CEO is talking and how he's deflecting questions and how he doesn't want to answer this question and that question, just about his optimism. Like I said, people, if they had a viable, if the initial results that they had were positive before they send it off for third-party testing, trust me, I believe that everybody else in the room would be acting a little bit differently. That's just me. I don't care if I was part of this company and I knew that we had some positive results, my body language is going to show that. Nobody, not one, showed any enthusiasm. Nobody was smiling. You could tell that there was no optimism at all whatsoever in this. So that's just my own opinion. So where do we go from here? And one of the things is that I'm putting together my exit plan right now. I do think that if we do see the price of a barrel of oil go up, now this is before any type of announcement of, and you can see Brent crude is at 122, WTI 120, OPEC basket at 123, and I am expecting those prices to go up above 150. All right, so I do expect, as the whole entire industry goes up, I do expect Zion Oil to benefit somewhat from that. Plus, all the people that are still piling in their money because they're misinterpreting a lot of the things that are going on within Zion Oil, opposite of what I just gave you. Right? Some people say they're trying to hide their emotions or hide their feelings. You can't do that with all those people in the room. It's very, very difficult. Now, I could be completely wrong. They could announce tomorrow they have a viable oil well. Whenever they make their announcement, this is when they should make their announcement. And this is for the future of Zion Oil, because I told you folks, I believe that because there's only 2 companies that are actually allowed to explore for oil, and the other company costs way too much for me to invest, and be able to benefit from that, and the other company, other than that, is Zion Oil. And so they should not be making their announcement until oil is making their peak, whether it's at 150, 180, or at 200. And I do expect the stock price to be a lot higher than what it is. I don't think it's going to go over $1, but it could go to 40 cents or 50 cents. But to make sure that you have your exit plan before this announcement comes. But that's when they should make their announcement, so that they can raise their own money, and people who have been invested can at least take some profit instead of losing out and having to wait. Because folks, if they don't have a viable well, you're going to be waiting from the time of the announcement, at least wait another year. They got to get the rig moved over to wherever they're going to drill next and go through the whole entire process all over again. So it might be a year and a quarter to 2 years before they're able to actually drill and get results from another oil well. That's a long time to wait when you were going in at 30 cents and now your investment is at a penny. This is a super long-term plan. And if they're going to have multiple rigs, that's going to cost a lot of money. Now, it's very well that Israel could give them subsidies, and that would help, but we're talking about years before production, because just to say let's say they bought 3 rigs. They have 3 rigs altogether, and they all start drilling at the same time. That does not mean that every single well is going to be viable that they drill, right? So we look at it's 2022. We still don't have oil. We still don't have a viable well. And I think this is more of a long-term plan to benefit Israel in the long term. So, but Zion Oil, this next time, they need to have a clear plan, and they need to be more open and honest with their shareholders and stop holding things back. We saw that back when they were on NASDAQ, making last-minute decisions and throwing everybody into a frenzy. And also, too, that they need to find the Judas, okay, because whoever was taking advantage of some of these updates and taking advantage of the shorting, whoever that is, they need to be found. Because I've shown to you on multiple occasions, the short interest would drop and then a news release would come. All right, and that wasn't no coincidence. When it's been running from 40 to 50% for weeks and weeks and weeks, and all of a sudden it drops, and then we get an announcement, we get an update. They got to do that too as well. So, like I said, if I were them, I wouldn't release those results until oil's at its peak and they've raised enough money to get the next well going. Whenever they do release, if they release negative results, the stock is going to drop like a rock. Now, if they do have oil, folks, it's still a long-term thing, okay? And it's not going to push the stock up to $50 or $60 or $100. I used to think that in the past, because I wasn't a trader and I wasn't somebody who did any research in the oil industry. And having one well is not going to push your stock up to the price of a company that have been in the business for years, okay? And even if they did shoot it up that high, I've showed you patterns, not just with Zion Oil, but other stocks. What goes up comes down, and it's not going to stay up there that long. You've got to think about it. Even if Zion Oil was to announce tomorrow that they have a viable oil well and it skyrockets to $10, you think it's really going to stay up there at $10? No, they're going to be selling off a lot of stocks to raise money to get the next phase going. So I'll say this, is that you need to have an exit plan. Right now, I'm still waiting to see what happens with oil prices. Okay, because I'm expecting it to go over $150 per barrel. All right, at some point it is going to skyrocket. It will go up above that point. Hopefully they do have oil. I'm praying that they have oil or gas, and if they don't, and then they have to start all over again, then so be it. I'll just wait to invest when that price is super cheap, and we'll start the whole process all over again. But, folks, there's one thing about learning about being a trader is that, you can make money off of almost any stock. And the more you learn, whether you're longing or shorting or whatever the case, buying and holding, and you learn all the different aspects of the stock market, which I'm still in the process, you can make money off of any stock. And if you're looking to become wealthy off the stock, you can get wealthy off of any stock if you just learn how to do all those things. Right? And I do realize that most people are buying and holding, and they're waiting for that one moment to sell. So I do understand it, because I was in that position too as well. So keep Zion Oil in prayer. So folks, I thank you for listening. God bless. TC out.